The social and economic crisis in the European Union shows no sign of abating. All the indications are, from politicians and economists, that conditions are getting worse, that they will deteriorate, and that there might be another slump. Now, what is interesting about all this is that mainstream politicians who govern Europe in different forms, but effectively with the same policies, have nothing to offer. So what is going to happen? People are going to get more and more angry and look for other solutions. In September this year, the British state received a shock as 40% of Scotland decided to vote for independence. Their triumph was short-lived, however, because soon after the vote in which independence was defeated, the poll figures showed that 52% of Scots now favoured independence, and there might be a meltdown in the next general election, with the Scottish yes voters winning a majority and depriving Labour of about 20 to 30 seats in the Westminster Parliament. So the volatility has not been contained by the triumph of the United Kingdom. What about Spain? This is a country which went through a huge crisis. This is a country in which there were huge mass movements, the indignados, which covered every single square in the country almost, including the two large cities of Barcelona and Madrid, demanding change, shouting a different Spain is possible, saying that the politicians were all corrupt, and so was the royal family. All of this is true. The two main parties, the Conservatives, who are currently ruling Spain, and the PSOE, the Spanish socialists, who have been in opposition and in government over the last few years, currently in opposition, have nothing new to offer. They repeat the same platitudes. They say that the crisis is under control when 25% of the country is unemployed, where work has come to a halt in many, many small cities, where there is large-scale unemployment in Madrid and in Barcelona, especially amongst the young. And what the politicians offer is nothing. Well, in the first week of November, a movement began to grow, which had been growing for a long time, demanding independence for Catalonia. It was both similar and dissimilar to what had happened in Scotland. But the movement's strength was determined by the fact that they decided to carry out an act of civil disobedience. Unlike Britain, where the government conceded a referendum thinking that they would win easily, which they didn't, in Spain, different Spanish governments have ruled out, continuously ruled out, any possibility of offering the people of Catalonia, Catalans, a chance to determine their own future. Two people, two leading figures in Catalonia who we interviewed had this to say. Montserrat Guibenau, who is the author of several books on nationalism and nations without state, said to us,
a limited interpretation of the Spanish Constitution is put into place. I mean, as it stands, the Spanish Constitution could allow a referendum, but at the moment there is no willingness. The political culture in Spain still has a very strong influence from the years of Francoism. The current demands for self-determination in Catalonia are connected with the idea that younger generations educated in democratic Spain feel and are convinced that they are entitled to decide upon their political future. And this is new. They don't understand how come that young people can vote in Scotland and cannot vote in Catalonia.
Gerard Padro, who is professor of economics at the London School of Economics, is convinced that Catalonia can survive, that there is a perfect basis for creating an independent state.
What makes the case of Spain a bit strange is that the level of service provision of the state in the different regions is very different. What this means is that the citizens of Catalonia pay more proportional to their income, so that's fair, but they actually receive less than in other regions in Spain. And this means important things. It means, for instance, that if you are actually a citizen of Catalonia and you have a baby, the government of Catalonia cannot afford certain vaccinations for your baby that are actually perfectly available for free in other regions of Spain. Building a new state will cost money. There are calculations about the amount this will cost. And some of these calculations are even done by people that are really against independence. They come with numbers of the order of 3,000 to 4,000 million a year. The fiscal deficit is 16,000 million. Economic arguments against independence really don't stand any minimal scrutiny. It's actually the big majority of the population that have a lot to gain. It's the users of public services. They are paying every day a very high price out of being Spanish citizens.
Now, the big difference with Scotland here is the following: that the demand for Catalan independence goes back a long, long way. It is not simply a result of the current social and economic crisis. It is that too, but not exclusively.
Spain celebrates the 18th anniversary of the termination of the Spanish Revolution and victory over communism. The nation's military might, much of it of American manufacture, acquired in return for bases, is on display for the occasion.
And we have to go back into history to see what happened to the Catalan nation at key points in Spanish history. During the Civil War, which wrecked Spain from 1936 to 1939 in the last century, had Franco been defeated, it is unlikely that the Second World War would have taken the path it did, or at least that is what historians say. But the main European powers let Franco win. Both France and Britain were happier, if the truth be told, that Franco won rather than the Republican coalition, which consisted of socialists, communists, anarchists, and many, many others having no political affiliations at all, who were defending democracy and defending the Spanish Republic. The vanguard in defending that republic was Catalonia. The uprising in Barcelona defeated Franco's armies, prevented them from taking Catalonia and Barcelona, set up workers' militias, set up armed militias to take over the streets, and in this, the central role was played by anarchists and dissident communists. The Generalidad, the Catalan parliament, failed to take advantage of this to set up an alternative government, take charge of the country, and use the whole of Catalonia as a base from which to defeat Franco. It wasn't easy to do so, but no attempt was made by the official parties of Catalonia at that time. They were all against Franco, but how to take the struggle beyond simply preventing the fascists from taking over Catalonia, they had no answers. And ultimately, the Republic lost and Franco came to power. Now, one of the aspects of that civil war, which is, of course, was unfortunate at the time, and when we look back at it now, seems criminal, was the way in which the more mainstream parties of the left united to destroy the left opposition inside Catalonia. So this tragedy haunted Spaniards of all stripes, and especially Catalans, because they saw what could have been and what wasn't. What was the impact of this within Spain? Massive repression, large-scale killings, deaths of poets and intellectuals, hundreds of thousands of Spaniards of all nationalities being forced into exile, and against the Catalans, whom the fascist government hated, because that's where they'd been defeated, and that's where the fascists had seen their enemy in its clearest colors. They were determined to punish the Catalans. And they did. The Catalan language was not allowed to be spoken, Catalan newspapers, Catalan literature. The crushing of Catalan culture was a central aim of the Franco regime, and they succeeded. They succeeded, but at a price, because in the underground and amongst the exiles, this created a hatred and a bitterness which was even greater than that felt by other anti-fascist Spaniards. The Catalans felt it more because they felt that they had been singled out and crushed, and they had been. So this historical defeat that they suffered has become part of the national consciousness of the Catalan people for a long time, which is why, unlike as in Scotland, many older people are for independence. They don't want to have anything to do with Spain, in which many feel that Franco's collaborators and successors are all present inside the Conservative Party of Rajoy today. Many, many people feel that, and they're not totally wrong about that either. So that historical reason is one crucial reason in determining the Catalan mood and a desire for self-determination. When finally Franco died, the deal was this: the monarchy would be restored, which the West wanted and the United States wanted and Britain wanted. The monarchy would be restored, and there would be a calm transition to a new constitution and a new state. Not a republic, which had been the demand of people in Spain for most of the 20th century, but a monarchy in which a Bourbon king was to rule. And this compromise turned the Spanish Socialist Party inside out and upside down. And this Socialist Party then became a central force in Spain and became corrupt beyond belief. So Spanish politics became like politics in the United States, where one party came to power, its supporters, its cronies, its clients benefited. Another came to power, they did exactly the same. And finally, people began to turn against them, which is what led to the huge mobilizations of the Indignados, and which is what led to the formation now Podemos, a party born out of the social movements, which is currently leading the polls as the single largest party if there were an election tomorrow. This is a huge change. And if you now add to that this act of civil disobedience by the Catalans, who were told by the central government in Madrid, the referendum you're planning is illegal, don't do it. But the pressure from below was so great that even the Catalan conservatives, who are currently ruling the region, couldn't resist and had to agree to the referendum. So let's understand clearly what took place in the referendum. First, 6.3 million people were eligible to vote. Naturally, not all of them came out because they knew that the referendum had no legal standing. I think if the referendum had been official and legal, probably 90% of the people would have come out to vote one way or the other. The 2.3 million Catalans who did come out to vote voted largely in favor. 2.3 million was a turnout of 37%, not counting the 16 to 18-year-olds and migrants who are not officially allowed to vote in normal elections inside the Spanish state. So what did this represent? If you look at the images, what it represented was hope, saying we don't want to stay with you. You've screwed us for decades and decades and decades. We want to go on our own. We'll be better off without you. And the Spanish officialdom, of course, had no response to this, apart from saying, no, 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 you are wrong, the Spanish state will remain. So 2 million, 2.3 million coming out in an act of civil disobedience and saying to Madrid, enough, no more. Extremely important development in the history of the Spanish state, because here were people of all ages and of many different social classes saying we want to control and determine the way in which we relate to the state under which we live today. And they were saying we don't want to live under this state, we want to create a new state. Now, how did the Spanish parties react? Well, the government, of course, extremely hostile, and so was the Socialist Party. These two parties, very much like the Westminster parties in London, the Better Together group, united against Scottish independence, their equivalents in Spain, united against any attempt by the Catalans to assert their independence. Well, they asserted it. It wasn't legal, but it's a point, I think, of no return. What was the attitude of the left? Podemos, the largest group now, according to the Barcelona paper, the Catalan paper La Vanguardia, Marc Bertomeu, spokesman of Podemos in Barcelona, said, "We are not for independence. The Podemos project for Catalonia is the same, whatever Catalonia wants to be, an independent state or not." Okay. Now, this is a position which is understandable in a way. Podemos is a Spanish statewide organization. They're saying that their members have different opinions, different views on this in different parts of the country, but recognizing that if the Catalans want national self-determination, naturally Podemos is not going to oppose it or stand in the way of that. The Podemos spokesman further said, "The national debate should be addressed, but we are not going to use this debate as a strategic cover to avoid discussing other relevant issues." That too is fair enough in a way, because there are many other issues confronting the Spanish state apart from Catalan independence or Catalan federal independent maximum devolution or whatever. But these issues are not totally unconnected, in my opinion, to what is going on in Catalonia today, because the central issue is the economy. How to break away from the impositions that have been made on Spain by the Troika. The austerity measures, the fact that even as the austerity measures were being carried out, there is now public evidence and information which has been in all the newspapers saying that the government party is corrupt. One of the leading figures within the government party showed how money was collected, how money was used illegally by the party leadership. The Spanish royal family itself has been caught up in a net of corruption, not simply the king shooting elephants in Africa during a moment of crisis in his own country, but his family involved in making a lot of money illegally and not paying taxes. So this is the situation. And then we, of course, had this flowing over into Catalonia itself, with Jordi Pujol, leading Catalan politician, and his family caught with their fingers in the till. It became clear that, and this is public knowledge, that they had a lot of money stored away in Swiss banks. So corruption is a cancer that is eating all parts of Spain. This is something that affects everyone. And getting rid of it means you can't simply get rid of it in one place. You have to have a solution within the Spanish state. Catalan nationalists, of course, say we can get rid of it on our own once we have our own state. And of course, that is possible. But it's a difficult problem. If that's the position of Podemos, the position of left unity, Izquierda Unida, is virtually the same as that of the Socialist Party. And this is the big, big weakness of the Izquierda. What they are proposing is a federal model of the Spanish state. They were for the referendum, but they are against independence. The Catalan leaders of the Catalan Green Initiative, the party that forms a coalition with the Izquierda Unida in Catalonia, much more relevant in Catalonia, were divided on the pro or against independence. Some publicly said they voted for independence, some said they voted against. So we have, in the Spanish state, total hostility to Catalan independence by the two main parties, a more nuanced position by Podemos, accepting the right of the Catalan people to determine their own future, and a defense of the old type of Spanish state by Izquierda Unida, with some of the Izquierda supporters and collaborators in Catalonia defying the leadership and saying that they are for referendums, and some are even for independence. So there is effectively confusion. Of the two main parties in Catalonia, we have the ruling conservatives, who for a long time resisted a referendum and then finally came to accept it, and are now saying that it should be negotiated with the Spanish state when the time comes. You have the ERC, the main opposition party in the Catalan Assembly, the Generalidad, which effectively is saying we are for independence, and the best way to decide the issue is to speed up the elections in Catalonia, which the ERC, the party of the center, is likely to win. Once the pro-independence parties have a majority, a big majority in the National Assembly, in the Catalan National Assembly, then we will begin to prepare the infrastructure on the basis of which we will declare independence unilaterally without any consultation with Madrid. So the situation is quite critical. There is no one in the Spanish state, in any of the major parties, who is capable of stopping the flow of what has already begun. Now, naturally, neither Catalonia, nor Scotland, nor the other small regions which are thinking in the same way want to be independent outside Europe. And this is both an opportunity, of course, but also a problem. What is the problem? The problem is that to get membership of the European Union, once you break from the mother state, which is a member, is not as easy, because the European leaders will impose conditions. These conditions are basically two. You have to accept our economic policies as dictated by the banks, and you have to join NATO. So what parties in Scotland and Catalonia have to decide and determine is how far they're going to accept the dictates of Europe and how far they're going to defy them. To simply accept what the European Union is likely to impose will mean no change at all. And then people will ask, what is the point of getting our own independent political space if what we put in it is exactly the same as we had before, except that the personnel have changed? And these debates have not yet started in earnest, but they are there at the back of everyone's mind. In Sunday's Symbolic referendum, independence won with 80.7% of the ballots. However, this doesn't mean, or at least we have no evidence, that the majority of Catalans want total independence. The latest surveys published in late October showed 45% support for independence. It is not yet clear what will happen next, but many people feel, young people especially, that this is a unique opportunity to build a fairer democratic system, a different economy, and the Francoist inheritance forever.
M'he fet voluntari perquè estimo el meu país, vull que el meu país sigui més democràtic i faré el que calgui per aconseguir això. He volgut formar part d'aquest dia històric perquè avui és el primer pas per assolir la independència tan buscada des de fa tant temps. El meu avi ja m'ho deia, i jo tinc 53 anys i no hem parat.
Sí, a la sobre, ja pot votar, eh? Vale, voto. Vinga. Vinga. Molt bé. Gràcies. Gràcies.
Gràcies.
Vine, com ha anat això?
Molt bé. No m'ho podia creure. O sigui, encara estic tremolant. No em podia pensar que pogués votar. Després de tot el que havia passat. Ja l'havien dit i les amenaces, però bueno.
Contenta?
Sí, molt. La veritat és que estic molt contenta. I ara demà, a tirar endavant, a seguir treballant.
Soc italiana, la meva parella és d'aquí i crec que és important votar pels meus fills. Tinc un fill i aquí i un altre que ve i crec que és important per ells.
Bueno, jo estic emocionada des que m'he llevat, ho dic de veritat. És una emoció constant, no?, de tantes i tantes coses, no?, que estan passant en aquests moments. Això que estan dient, no?, que és la revolució dels somriures, d'alguna manera sí que és cert.
Què et diu la gent? Què et diu la gent?
Bueno, donar les gràcies per tot, estan tots molt contents. Ja et dic, jo crec que és més l'emoció, no tant les paraules, sinó com ens expressem, no?, quan ens mirem, quan somriem, quan et donen les gràcies, quan dius, oh, quanta gent que hi ha, és un formiguer, no? És tot això.
Vale, doncs em dic Eric, acabo de fer 17 anys i bueno, és la primera vegada que voto i jo crec que és un vot important i espero que serveixi per alguna cosa, no només políticament, sinó perquè Europa s'enteri del que volem aquí a Catalunya.
The Spanish government says the vote has no meaning. This is where they're dead wrong. And if politicians in Spain, in the Spanish state, cannot understand what is happening in Catalonia, they will receive a rude shock very soon. Many intellectuals, different sorts, people in the professions feel that this time they're going to make it and that Catalonia will become independent sooner than people think. And if the crisis continues as it has done till now, there is little reason to doubt them.